Hello, and welcome back to The Gist. I am your host, Chris Vetrano, back for another episode breaking down all the things happening in pop culture this week. There is a lot going on. Guys, this is a jam-packed show, but most importantly, we have a very special guest. Our first for the podcast is waiting in the wings to break down all the things happening on Real Housewives in this last week. So we got to get to that, but before we get to my special guest, I've got to give you the gist on a couple of things happening in pop culture because it was a jam-packed week. First of all, we have to start off by acknowledging that we lost a musical icon last week. Just 2 days after celebrating the Golden Globes, where the film honoring her father Elvis Presley was nominated, Lisa Marie Presley, she died at the age of 54 after suffering cardiac arrest. It was an incredibly sad ending to the tragic life that she lived. I hope that now she is resting peacefully with her son and her father. My heart certainly is going out to Priscilla and her daughter. Rest in peace, Lisa Marie. This is a musical family that will forever be part of music history, and our hearts are breaking at this news. Obviously gone too soon. So, R.I.P. to that. There is no real way to shift gears from that kind of heavy news. So we're just going to take a bit of a left turn and head to the Chrisleys. Guys, Chrisley no longer knows best. They are headed to prison on Tuesday this week. They reported to begin their sentences. Todd Chrisley will be serving in Florida. I'm hearing it's a pretty cush setup that he's got, but he will be serving 12 years in prison, and his wife Julie is headed to a facility in Kentucky where she will serve 7 years. So we've got about a decade of time served between the two of them. It's about almost 20 years. It's a pretty serious thing that they were facing and that they were convicted of. And so we will certainly see how it plays out. I know that they're appealing things, so we'll see if maybe they get out early, but they have reported to prison and are beginning their sentences this week. Also happening in music news, Miley Cyrus, she has officially started her new era. The singer, she released her new single, Flowers, this week. And yes, it's a yes from me. I love it. It's a revenge track to her ex, Liam Hemsworth. So have you heard about this, guys? The song is reportedly a response to the Bruno Mars song that Liam dedicated to her at their wedding. And in response, Miley says that she can buy herself flowers. It is so good, and she continues to put Liam on blast in the video for the song, which if you haven't seen it, Miley has never looked better. Stop listening to this immediately. Go watch the video for Flowers because it is so good. But I found out some tidbits about the behind the scenes of this video. So she filmed it at a house that Liam allegedly used to cheat on Miley with over 14 women while they were together. And in the video also wears a suit that he famously wore on a red carpet where Miley was acting up. They were trying to pose together. She was, just being Miley, doing her normal thing. And Liam kind of told her to behave and calm down. You can probably find the clips on TikTok. I'm sure now, especially with this song release, it's going viral again. But it was kind of a famous clip that people had found, especially when the rumors were that they were maybe in trouble. And so she wore that suit in the video. I mean, she's really going for revenge, and I'm loving it. So definitely check out Flowers if you haven't. By the way, if you are on Spotify, you can check out my playlist, Jams by Chris Vetrano. Follow for all of the music that I'm listening to. You can also find it at listenitsvetrano.com. It's right there streaming. So check it out. Flowers has made the list, and I think you'll love it too. Also in music news this week, Madonna, she announced the Celebration Tour. This is a tour of all of her hits that span over 40 years. This is 4 decades of music. I have the Immaculate Collection on vinyl that we listen to all the time, and it's jam-packed of Madonna hits that you sometimes forget about. And this is like before Ray of Light, this is before Music and Dance Floor Confessions, and this is all of these like huge Madonna songs, and am just, I can't believe, I don't know how she's going to fit it all into a set list. So it'll be very interesting to see how that comes together, and also interesting to see how ticket sales go following the Taylor Swift debacle at Ticketmaster. So, Madonna, the Celebration Tour, tickets are going on sale soon. So check that out. Couple of other quick hits happening in pop culture. The new season of Drag Race has premiered. Ariana Grande was the initial guest judge. It was a double episode to introduce us to all the queens. I just recently, in the pandemic, caught up on Drag Race. I had never really been a fan, but started watching it, fell in love, got a little over some of the more recent seasons, was feeling like the queens weren't really living up to the hype. But this season is delivering, so check it out. And then also, if you're a fan of rom-coms, I am a closeted rom-com fan. I think I've seen like all of them. I even like the really cheesy ones that, you know, Netflix or back in the day like Hallmark or Lifetime would put out. I can't help it. I just love them. They're feel-good flicks. Obviously the bad ones are really bad, but the good ones, classics. So I haven't seen a good one in a while, and I was really excited when I saw the trailer drop this last week for Reese Witherspoon and Ashton Kutcher's new rom-com, Your Place or Mine. It's hitting Netflix on February 10th. If you haven't checked out the trailer, do so immediately. Worth the watch. Absolutely. I can't wait. It's just in time for Valentine's Day, so I know what I'll be doing. So that's the gist of what's happening in the headlines. But now I've got to get to my special guest because I'm so excited to introduce her to you. I don't even know where to start because she is a Grammy-nominated, multi-platinum selling recording artist, a singer, a songwriter, an actress. She fronted the band Hey Monday, went on to win season 3 of NBC's The Voice. She also happens to be one of the best friends you could ever have. Please welcome to The Gist, my friend, Cassadee Pope. Cassadee, welcome to The Gist.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Of course. And I think that like probably the most thrilling accomplishment of all for you is that, one, you were my maid of honor in my wedding.
Oh yeah, that's up there, top 5 for sure.
and also when, I don't know, 9 years ago, I decided that I was going to create a YouTube series for my site, Listen It's Vetrano. You were my first guest there. So It only is fitting that you are the first guest for The Gist.
Yeah, we keep up the tradition.
Yeah. Nice. You know, I wouldn't recommend that people go watch that episode because there's little to be desired. No lighting, the sound quality. I think we had the microphone on the floor, so none of us could move. It was the amateur hour at best.
But I do think we had a really fun time doing it. So I think it actually is a fun watch. It's just the quality is not great.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and then you came back and we figured out that. So we've had some fun. And so I'm super excited that you're here. We have so much to talk about. I know that you are working on a new project, but details are still under wraps. You're hinting at some of the songs, giving a little preview at one of the songs on TikTok. Where can people find that? Cassadee Pope.
Cassadee Pope on TikTok. I'm showing a little bit of a preview of what's to come. So, but we'll talk about that stuff in a different episode.
Yes, you'll come back. We'll talk all about the new project. I don't want to give anything away, but today you're also like me, a Bravo-holic.
Oh, yeah.
And specifically Housewives, right? Or are you into some of the other shows?
Yeah, Housewives is my favorite of all of them. I really like Southern Charm. I liked Shahs of Sunset. But if I were to pick my Bravo obsession, it's all of the Housewives. Yeah, and all franchises. You're into every city. The only one that I fell off of was Dubai, and there's really no reason other than it's hard for me to get into a new city, and I almost need to give it a couple of seasons so that I can binge for some reason. I think maybe it's just the retention for me. Just I need a lot at once. Yeah. But yeah, that one was the one that recently that I wasn't able to get into.
Well, you may be in luck because I heard that this week that season 2 is a go for Dubai, although I don't know that all the cast will be back. But Chanel Ayan is the headline of that show, so you're going to have to check out Chanel. She's a character that is going down in history of one of the best housewives that ever lived. But she, I agree, like Dubai was a little bit slow of a start. I think, Caroline Stanbury, did you ever watch Ladies of London?
I did. Yes.
Yeah, so
she's great TV.
Yeah, she's amazing. And
yeah.
So I think that like she was really like creating the hype around Dubai, but I didn't feel like she really delivered in this first season. So we'll have to see if she's back.
Yeah, I saw snippets. I know she was like newly married or getting married or something. Yeah. So maybe she might have been on her like best behavior.
I think she was. Yeah. I think she was also like known as kind of like a cold, icy kind of character on Ladies of London. I think she was trying to like change that image a little bit, and it didn't land because I don't know that she is.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see if she's back. I'm sure she will be, but you'll have to check that out. So if you had to pick a favorite, do you have a favorite of the Housewives cities?
I mean, I'm never bored of New Jersey. I mean, even on a slow episode, there's still one-liners. There's still an argument. Even just with the relationships, the marriages, you know, the husbands are so down to be involved in the drama. So there's like double drama in New Jersey because the husbands are just so willing to be a part of everything. But I also, I never watched like past seasons of Miami. And this season of Real Housewives of Miami is absolutely like incredible. That's like one that I'm obsessed with right now.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Miami in a minute, but I couldn't agree with you more on the Jersey thing. Although I think there was like, I can't remember now if it was like, I want to say it was like 4 or 5 seasons ago where they brought like the twins on, and it was,
oh yeah,
they really lost their way. They couldn't find the cast for a minute, but it's back, and I'm really excited. I think we're just a couple of weeks away from the new season. I think it's going to replace Salt Lake City when that reunion is finished. And so, yeah, I'm super excited, and I agree. And I think that is a good segue into kind of what happened this week on some of the Housewives. You talked about Miami, but also one of the things that I was thinking about, we watched, I know you watched Potomac this week.
Oh yeah.
And we saw the fallout or the continuation of the Karen and Charisse fight at dinner. I mean, what a wild like interaction that was.
So weird. There's so much under there. Like there's so much more going on because the way they both popped off so quickly, like 0 to 60, I just felt like they obviously have a history. We've seen it on the show, but there is a lot more going on there. And then I know Karen shared, the text that she sent Charisse when, was it her father that passed?
When Karen's father passed, and then Charisse's father passed. Yes.
Father. Yeah. She sent her that long text. So it's like they both did the things that you're supposed to do when, a friend is grieving. So I'm like, okay, that doesn't seem like the real reason anybody's actually upset. There's like something else.
No, there's definitely more to that story. And I think, and that's what I was going to say about the Jersey ties, is that Jersey feels so authentic because when you have like the Joe and Teresa and Melissa dynamics that are like, there is some really deep things there, like, because it's real drama, it's family drama. It's not this like artificial stuff of who didn't come to whose party and who said what, and sometimes on Beverly Hills, they dissect like Lucy Juicy Apple Goosey or whatever that was for an entire season about a dog that like wasn't the right fit for Dorit's home. And so it was, but this is like real deep rooted stuff. And I think that's what makes for really good television. And I agree. I mean, I felt like they sort of like sailed past it too in that dinner or in that fight. Charisse just mentions like Karen went to rehab and Karen says no, but like they never really brought that back. I'm very curious as to what happened there.
Yeah, I think Karen is a kind of a master at deflecting and changing the subject and not actually answering questions. Because Karen's amazing. Like without her, the show, I think everybody's amazing on that show, but she's really carried that show over the years. Like she's a constant. So, but I do think that she has a tendency to just swoop to be like, no, we're moving on. We're not addressing that. No, because she's like, I'm better than that. So I'm not going to address these things, which is fine, but it leaves us with a lot of questions.
Well, and especially in this last episode, it's like she's so good at that, and then for some reason, for sure with Charisse, she could not hold in her grand dame composure.
Yeah, she couldn't.
It was wild, and there's so many rumors about Karen, and I feel like they constantly come up about her like potential boyfriends or what's kind of going on with that. But Charisse clearly knows some stuff about her. I had to go back and watch the end of the last episode because I couldn't remember what they were even fighting about. Like what popped it off to this place that they were even talking about, like Karen saying, don't talk about my mother, don't put my mother's name in your mouth. And it was like, did she? And I think Giselle even says at one point at the table, like, who said anything about the mother?
Yeah. I think there were a lot of people looking really confused at the table. Like, why is this such a big deal right now? And like, I will say the one that brought up the potential boyfriends, like, wasn't it Candace? To Ashley?
Well, Candace did earlier in the season. She said something about seeing her out. But then when the producer, I love that the producers like asked her about it in her confessional. And then she's like, no comment. And then the producers cut to when she actually was talking about it earlier in the season.
I know the editing with these people that work for Bravo or whatever the production company is are so shady and amazing. Like they just make everybody look like a bunch of liars out here.
And I think that's like, I feel like they've really caught on to that because they know that these women like go to the reunions and then they're like, I never said that. That thing didn't happen. And so I feel like producers are now like, we have to put this in the season several times because they can't deny it by the time they get to the reunion.
Yeah, because everybody would just go and say they didn't say something.
Yeah, and the reactions at the dinner were incredible. It was like, I felt like it was like this crazy fight, and then all of a sudden it just ended, and everybody got up from the table, and Giselle's like, all right, let's go. And they all just went on with their nights, and Ashley and Candace, who you typically don't get along, are filming a TikTok, and they're like, everyone's like having these like weird things. But also speaking of sort of these deep-seated, like real issues, we now are seeing this also play out with Mia and her friend Jacqueline, who she brought on the show this season. What are your thoughts on that? Because that's been pretty wild.
Oh my gosh. I actually felt really uncomfortable because knowing how close these two are and how things like a reality show ruin relationships, it just made me really sad to see because it seems like they're genuinely like sisters. Mm-hmm. And obviously they have like an interesting relationship sexually. They've done things and seen each other in interesting positions, like with a flashlight, looking at the vagine. But like, I don't really, I didn't like seeing it. Like it's, sometimes you enjoy seeing an argument or like a little spat, but like I actually didn't like watching them fight. Like I felt uncomfortable because there's this girl that's kind of an outsider, and then Mia's just like going at her, and whether Jacqueline said something rude to Mia off camera or something or not, like you're on camera and you're with all the other women and you're like, calling her on maybe stuff that is true, but you're really going to do that like in front of everyone and to somebody you've been friends with for, is it 20 years or something like that?
Yeah, it's insane. Like
it's just
and
weird.
And the stuff that they're talking about, I'm not sure if we like really have gotten to the heart of what it truly is. Like the close your legs to married men, obviously Mia is trying like her best Nene impersonation there, but like,
I know.
But what are we actually talking about? Like, are they talking about Jacqueline with Mia's husband? Are they, I'm confused as to what we're actually talking about.
That I know. And I think Jacqueline actually like it. I think it was like, oh, why are you talking about Mia's husband now? You're kind of like giving yourself away. It's like when you tell someone like, why did you do that? And they say, I didn't do the XYZ. And they say something that you weren't even talking about. And you're like, oh, you did that? I was talking about this other thing.
Yeah.
So I feel like she over explained, like, I would never sleep with your husband, when to me, I thought Mia was really just talking about, you know,
in general,
sleep with married men. Like, yeah.
Well, and then we learned that like Mia, and I don't know if that was the first time we learned about it, that Mia or Gordon was married when Mia and him got together. Like, I felt like that was also like sort of a revelation in that moment. And then we just sort of skated by it as well. There was so much happening.
So much.
And then the next day we like, after this like explosive night, we cut to Ashley's birthday, and I don't know what was Ashley hosting on the beach. It just looked like they were like, she was hosting orgasms on the beach.
I mean, I think it was something to do with like body work to help with bigger orgasms, or something. I didn't retain what it was called, but
it was interesting. Nonetheless, it was, and I just loved how all the women, it like cut to them all, like Ashley, like setting up all the towels and being like, all the girls said they're coming. And then it's like, every girl's like, no, I'm not doing that.
Candace walks down looking like she's about to do a photo shoot with the big hat.
Yeah.
So good.
It was amazing. And then they go to this, what did they keep calling it? Like this cenote? I don't even know what that is, but they kept like jumping in that body of water, and I'm not sure what that was supposed to be doing. Like, it was supposed to be some sort of cleansing experience?
Some sort of cleansing, I think that was also a sexual thing. It was like helped with a better sexual experience or something. And it's like also youthful, gives you some youth powers. I don't know. Something like that. Ashley is just into the woo-woo stuff. She's always been.
She is into the woo-woo stuff. I love that. It was very interesting. Although I did feel like that her and Candace made some progress at the lunch. They were like having lunch after, and I thought Candace made some good points when she had talked about the reasons and why Ashley was so dead set on like calling Chris out for, DMing her and all of these things, and tying it back to her trust issues from her own relationship. I thought it was like pretty spot on, and I couldn't tell if Ashley was like really responsive to that. And I don't know, maybe one wouldn't be if you are experiencing those trust issues. Maybe you're not like fully realizing that, but
and I feel like hearing that, I agree. I was like, oh, Candace is a therapist. I was like, that's great. But I think hearing that from a therapist as opposed to someone you've had some falling out things with, you're probably more open to hearing that from someone you're not kind of in a thing with. But I will say I've always had a soft spot for Candace.
Oh gosh. I mean, one of the best housewives, I think, ever. I think when I talked about Chanel Ayan, I think Candace is up there with the greats.
Yeah, and just what she's actually done musically is like, she's not just taking advantage of having a platform. She's actually like pursuing music, and as a musician, I'm like, no, she's working hard. Like, she's taking voice lessons, she's practicing, she's on tour, she's collaborating with other artists. Like, she's really doing it, and it's really, I love seeing that, because again, like, as an artist, seeing housewives that are like, I want to do a song. It doesn't hurt me, but I look at them and I'm like, that must be nice to have all this money and just decide one day you're going to put out a song and it has millions of streams because you have that platform, Right. And it's kind of not good, but it, performs really well anyway. But I really like seeing a housewife like grinding it out, doing it, like 100%. So yeah, I really like Candace.
Yeah. I mean, side note, like, what of the like housewives songs, is there one to you that like maybe is like the cheese? It can be super cheesy because most of them are, but maybe Candace and Candy aside, because they're like legitimate musicians.
Oh, right.
But totally. Like, of the other housewives singles, is there one that you just like kind of have a little bit of a guilty pleasure for?
Oh my gosh. I mean, no. I think the rest are pretty bad.
I mean,
I will say I love a good like live Luann performance
yes.
of
Anything.
anything, but the one that's with the class.
Money Can't Buy You class.
Yeah, Money Can't Buy You class. That's like for sure. I enjoy seeing her do it live. But what is the one where I think it was OC. She sang it as like a proposal song.
Oh,
it was like a
gosh.
Who was that?
I can't. I'm blanking on that. I can't remember.
I am too.
A proposal song. I mean, well, because Ashley, also had a single. Like she tried to do the musical thing. Like it was like the first or second season. It was like,
yeah, she sang at Pride, didn't she?
Yeah, and she was. I can't remember what it was called. Like it's called like Milk and Honey or like.
Okay,
it was something.
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, it was something wild. She was definitely not the talented as
Coffee and Love.
Coffee and Love. What are they? Milk and Honey. I mean, kind of close.
So just a remix. Oh my God. Yeah, I need to find out what that other song is. But I don't think I've heard the whole thing, the OC one. I just remember her in the booth singing it, and it was so bad. And then after she was done, she was like, I get the chills every time.
Oh, what I'm guessing, I don't know this for a fact because I probably have blanked her out. But Gretchen Rossi, I feel like it might have been when she proposed to Slade.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Okay, and she's back on Ultimate Girls Trip on this next season, on season 4. They just announced her as part of the cast. That. Very interesting because I think she's like QAnon, and I think I'm not sure, like, one, why we need to give her a platform again, and two, I don't know if you've seen any photos of her, but she Facetunes like crazy in a place where like she has no nose on the photos. And so it's like, I don't know what she's going to look like on this series. I feel like she's going to have to really do some scrubbing of her social media content as of late.
She needs to start slowly backing off the Facetune so that when we see her on TV, it's not like, Shocking. Who is that?
Yeah. Absolutely. No, there's so many like just crazy songs, and sometimes I forget about them, and then I like thought I liked it because I've heard it so much on the show, and then I like play it on Spotify and I'm like, oh gosh, this does not play well when it doesn't have the visual. I mean, it doesn't play well in general, but also I'm realizing that why didn't we go see Candace when she came to Nashville at City Winery?
I know. I think I was going to a different show that night, but there was also, did she reschedule that one?
I don't know.
Because she had one last year that rescheduled, but I don't know if it happened or if that was the reschedule.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, if she comes again, we have to go and check her out because that's a must. We have to see that show.
And she better pull out a triangle.
A triangle.
She needs to get emotional during one of her songs and pull out a napkin and fold it in a triangle and start dabbing the corners of her eyes.
And it just needs to like be bigger than the microphone and
like a massive one.
So people
maybe one of her dancers can bring it out and then dab it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh gosh. Yeah, no, that's amazing. I do love her. I think she delivers all the one-liners. Her confessionals. I could watch like an entire episode of just her in the confessionals. So
I know.
I love her. But I was definitely excited to see them sort of make up. And then we have to just get to like the next dinner. I guess that night's dinner was the dinner from hell. I mean, what was even happening? It was like fights were breaking out like everywhere you turned. Like I think we had like 3 or 4 different fights that ended up taking place during that dinner. Wendy calling out Mia. I mean, it was, I felt like every time someone like took a breath, someone else said something to like toss some kind of like their what is it? Like their
like trauma or whatever their experience. Well, that's when that I had this thought when that dinner was happening, and I was just like, oh my God, the reason everybody keeps like injecting themselves into whatever fight's happening is because there's like a pattern, and things that happen to one person have happened to almost all of them, like a physical altercation, some allegation about their husband, some allegation about them being a cheater, some a business thing, not, you know, having enough money, whatever, all this stuff. And like, so they all have done to each other what's been done to them. So now all of a sudden everybody's like, well, what about me when you did that to me? And it's like, well, you did that to her. And it's this like,
oh my
fucking
gosh,
crazy. It's like bad.
this is I mean, this is okay. Now you're talking about like Candace being a therapist. It's like, okay, you just like nailed that. I never even thought about it in that way, but it's so true, because that was kind of like, it was like bouncing off of people, and it was like, well, you forgave that person, but when I did it, you didn't forgive me. And it's like, that's kind of what was feeding all of this. It was, I mean, it was wild. It was hard to keep up. I mean, typically you get like one fight. It's not usual that on these shows, it's like all of a sudden things are sort of breaking out all over the table. It reminded me too of, I don't know if you, I mean, I'm sure you probably did see it, New York, and it was season 10, episode 16, Cartagena Nights, and Bethany and Carol are getting in a fight on one end of the table. And then Luann says something about Dorinda getting drunk and said something like, oh, here she's starting. And then all of a sudden Dorinda and Luann start like going at it. And at both ends of the table, there's these two fights. And like, you could just tell producers were like, we don't know how to play this out, because both, I mean, they almost had to go to split screen because it was just like so wild. I felt like that was like Potomac this week. Yeah.
Props to the audio guys who are able to freaking, by guys, I mean, you know, guys and gals,
yes, crew.
Like crew for separating all the audio. Like, how do you do that? I don't understand, especially when they're screaming.
I know. Well, I've always wondered too, like, because I always thought that like when they went to like parties and stuff, like there was no music playing. But I was listening to something, I think it was an interview with not Giselle, Garcelle, and she was talking about how her birthday party, like they were playing a lot of music because there was a lot of dancing. And I was thinking like, how did the audio guys pull the audio out from like all of the music that's playing in the background at a party in order for us to, because you obviously can't play that music on TV unless they pay for it, and they certainly aren't going to do that on Bravo.
No, God, no.
It's wild, but props to the crew, the men and women who keep us so entertained and deliver all of the fighting from every angle in perfect, clear voices. Anything else?
Subtitles if need be.
yeah, totally. Anything else on Potomac from this week?
I just that I'm Team Candace with this whole other lady trying to come in saying that Chris was looking at her, and when he clearly didn't look in her direction at all. Like, and I think it is. I don't know. As someone in like a healthy relationship, I obviously would ask questions. You know, if like someone said that about Sam, I'd be like, "Hey, someone said this. I don't believe them, but what do you have to say about it?" And then the way that she is so solidly for her man in front of everybody is just like, that is a functional, normal way for a trusting wife to be. So when people make comments about like, how is she so, you know, how is she so fine with all this? It's like, well, she like genuinely doesn't believe you. And then you see the footage and it's like, it didn't happen.
Yeah, it's, I feel like it's like every girl this season. I feel like Mia said it. I feel like all these girls are saying the same thing about Chris. And the producers, again, with the receipts, they're like they're making Chris look good, honestly, because it's like even in the footers on the screen, it's like Chris not looking at this person.
Yeah, that's so true.
It's like,
but it's like, I'm so close with my friends' spouses that like if one of my friends' husbands pulled me to the side in a room where it was quiet away from people so we could have a conversation, I wouldn't be like, I can't be in a room with you.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, no, there's some weird motivations I think that happen on these shows though too. I think that the women look for such storylines and like, where are we going to take the story? Where are we going to be the center of the drama? And I think that's where we
right.
tend to sometimes like get into a risky place with these shows. And I think that's like what happened with Rinna on the last season of Beverly Hills, is she tried to create some sort of storyline that then just sort of really fell flat. And I think like that's maybe what was happening there. And yeah, Chris and Candace just came at the ready to like shut all of that down and did it so well. Yeah. Well, definitely more to come on Potomac. I am loving it. I think that, they're also, this cast of women has not changed since the beginning. I mean, we've had a few. Mia's new. Obviously, Wendy came in a couple of seasons ago. Charisse has exited. Katie has exited. But even they like pop up still, and they've really like maintained this cast of women. And I think it's a testament of like, these are like top tier housewives right now. So loving Potomac. I think we should talk, because you mentioned it earlier. I think we should talk about Miami as well, because it's on fire. And I think very similarly, we're watching something very, very real play out on TV, which is why it's so good. And I mean, obviously we're mostly talking about Lisa and Lenny and this divorce that's playing out, and it's so messy. But what I like applaud is like Lisa's willing to put it all out there. I think a lot of the women hide these kinds of things or try to create various narratives for the show. And Lisa's just like, this is happening and here it all is. And it's like pretty wild to watch.
Yeah. And it's, she's not afraid to paint this picture of like, he left me. And like, you look at them and I'm sorry, but you're like, you left her?
Yeah, I know, right?
She's just such a bombshell, and he's not. And I'm not saying the couples have to always be equally, like society norms would look at her and say, yeah, she's hot. And society norms would look at him and say, he's not ugly, but he's not, Brad Pitt.
It's the money. It's the money. They're all after that.
Yeah. And I didn't watch past seasons, so I don't know if he was an amazing guy, and like that obviously like makes someone very attractive when they can make you laugh and make you feel secure and happy. So I'm not discounting all that, but like it's just so unbelievable. The only thing I will say, when you see the footage from like past seasons that I didn't watch, and you do see him a bit, disconnected from her, and her not really absorbing that and realizing that, I do wonder what level of delusion she had, just because she, when you just want so badly for something to work and to stay the way it is, sometimes you just don't see the red flags, and she's got kids. She had a beautiful life. She was happy with him and thought he was happy with her, that she maybe missed some of the telltale signs of like a man sort of starting to check out. And that's the only thing I will say is like, I feel terrible for her. There's no excuse for what he's doing, but I also feel sad that she wasn't able to see those things and address them, and it's not her job to do that. But like, maybe they could have gone to some therapy or worked on it, or it's just sad.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have done therapy. I feel like that was like in the old days they had been in therapy, and then because they really I think they like used to fight about whether or not they wanted kids. I think he maybe didn't and she did, or the other way around. I can't remember, but I know that was like a big thing in the original Miami. And then when Miami returned 2 seasons ago, that was when we found out that he had an affair, and
that's right.
They were working through that. And I think they went to therapy for that. And so I think like, to your point, like there was a lot of red flags and probably like some behavioral things that continued, that she probably maybe looked the other way because she really wanted it to work. But I think, I mean, it also was pure comedy, but this text about the bananas and the crunchy peanut butter, I was like, What, like they literally are screaming at each other and, in one scene, and then it's like 20 minutes later, as the producers did their due diligence to show us, he's texting her about going to order bananas and crunchy peanut butter, and like, so maybe like she was not able to see through the flags because he did things like this, where it was like he was 1 minute like this person, and then another minute like everything was status quo.
Sure.
And
Sure.
maybe she just kept going. Yeah, it's pretty wild. I definitely am interested to see how it continues to play out. And obviously we've seen a lot of it in the press, and so we know that, like, you know, there's not a happy ending to their marriage, but I think she like recently just stepped out with some young guy that's like super hot, and so good for her. She's getting back out there.
Yeah, if he's allowed to just start dating during the marriage, then she's allowed to date after the marriage.
Exactly. And then we also saw Alexia with her son Frankie, and there's something about like the two of them together that's just so endearing. And obviously, you know, they have an uphill battle with Frankie after his accident. This played out in the early parts of Miami back in the day, and we see, you know, not a lot has changed. But I think like when I see these scenes of them like out and he's interacting with like her friends and saying that he's like, "You're so beautiful," and he's doing all of these things, it's just so amazing. I could watch like a spinoff of them like just popping around Miami together.
Yeah, I feel like you don't get to see housewives that have real life like family things that are so common and so relatable that they feel comfortable sharing, and seeing their friends, the other housewives, interacting with him is just like, these are real people, and we can see that. I like seeing that more when like people are obviously no one like thought twice about Frankie. It's like their friend's son. But for us, we don't see that often. Like someone who got in an accident and is affected like that and is on TV still. Like there's representation, you know, lacking in that department on these shows. So it is like when we do see it, it kind of sticks with us because it's like, yeah, these people are in these women's lives, and like a lot of them don't end up on the shows. So it's just good that it's good that they were down to do that.
Yeah, I think that just plays out throughout the like women that are on Miami, is they're all very transparent about the things going on in their lives. And I think that's also what makes it so interesting to watch and keeps us kind of like moving through the storylines, because it's not this like artificial play of, we're going to, you know, talk about this thing at every dinner for the next like 4 episodes. And you're just kind of like, all right, let's wrap that up. Like there's a lot of life happening for these women, and you're seeing so much of it. And so I think that's part of what is making it really interesting. What about this like Martina and Julia, their 14th anniversary dinner that I thought she burned, but then they both were talking about how great it was. So I guess it was good. And then they want a baby. Like, what are your thoughts there?
I'm conflicted because I've just gone to so much therapy that I see what's not Martina. What's the housewife's name?
Julia.
I see Julia having such a hard time being an empty nester, and I'm just like, I don't have kids. I have no idea what that would feel like. However, I know that you do have to figure out a way to move on with your life, you know, and find that happiness, find love and acceptance within yourself, all that stuff. And so I just see this as a bit of an artificial reason to adopt. I feel like it's not a good enough reason. It's not to, like, the core reason is because she's sad and wants someone else in the house with her. And
Martina's going to Aspen a lot too, which is part of the storyline, that like she's not really there, which is making her more lonely. And it's like, maybe that's not the right time to bring a baby in when only one of the parents is home often.
Yeah. I don't love the reasoning. I don't love how flippant it is about like, I'm having a hard time. So what if we got a baby? It just feels like get another farm animal, you know? Like maybe another bird.
Oh gosh. Oh god. No more birds. Oh gosh.
You hate birds.
I do hate birds. And I mean, Julia, like she just had, I mean, her farm, it's too much. Like the fact that she brought a goat to that like dog birthday party, and then they were like surprised that the goat like bit one of our, I was like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, we don't bring goats around. One, I've never seen a goat on the beach. And so that alone was like too much.
I bet that goat was like, what is this thing that I'm stepping on? Why is the ground mushy?
Yeah, it was wild. I did love Julia's new confessional look, though. I don't know if you remember it. It was like she had the wet hair look.
Oh yeah, that was beautiful.
It was like very Kill Bill. I was like, oh yeah, I'm loving that. I love when they give us looks.
I also love when a housewife looks like normal, like hasn't been messed with cosmetically.
Yeah, I feel like Nicole does that really well.
Like,
she's so beautiful. I worry that she's gonna like fall into it, but I think we have like both ends of the spectrum on Miami. We have the Marisols and the Alexias who, you know, are like teetering on Alien. Yeah. And then you've got the like more natural, why am I blanking on her name?
Lisa?
Larsa.
Yeah.
Yeah, Larsa is another one where it's just like, if you look at her from season 1, like her first original season, like completely different person. It's wild. And then you've got the people like Nicole that are more natural. I think like Gertie is like gorgeous.
So beautiful. Yeah.
And I love Kiki too.
Kiki's like fun.
I literally had to check to see how long it had been into the episode. I tagged it at 38 minutes into the 44-minute episode was the first time that we saw Kiki on our screens. And I was like, jail time. Like the producers, what are you doing? I need more Kiki. I love Kiki. She's kind of like delivering Candace-like lines in her confessionals and stuff. So I want more Kiki. Yeah.
It's like quality over quantity for Kiki. She only like comes in when it's like she has a really good point to make.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Maybe she didn't have a lot of points in the early parts of the episode. But speaking of quantity, Adriana getting her BBL surgery, which I've heard of the BBL, obviously, like I hear about it all the time. Did not know really what it was, and maybe didn't need to see it actually happening. I was pretty disturbed by it.
It made my stomach a little queasy, not gonna lie.
And I'm not even sure like what did it do? Like she wore that outfit afterwards that didn't like show anything off. So I wasn't sure if it's like because it was healing and so she wore something loose, or like is it supposed to actually like implant, or I don't know anything about it.
I think it's more, I don't think it's, I mean, this is so like just based off of the little experience I've had with like Botox, like maybe it's injected to lift and not like make it bigger, but just lift everything. So like it's an injection that maybe like makes the muscles sit higher or something. It just brings it up. I also didn't know that you could get a BBL without being like sliced and diced, you know, like.
I know, that's what I guess that was like what I was confused about, because when I had heard about it, I always thought that it was like this major surgery. I didn't like, it did seem like she was just going in for Botox. Yeah. And I mean, they, you know, were really digging that needle into her, but I mean, it was interesting. The whole thing was like kind of fascinating, but I'm also not sure that I know what she actually did there.
True. I am glad it wasn't the surgery, because you can die.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why I just immediately laughed at that, because haha, you can die. No, I laughed because it's like, it's so outrageous that like you're getting a BBL and it has that kind of like side effect, but yeah, you know, these women do crazier things, I suppose.
True.
Anything else on Miami before we hit Salt Lake?
Oh God. No, I think, let's get into it.
We got to get to Salt Lake. It was the season finale. What I don't know where to start. Okay, first of all, what did you think of this season?
I'm annoyed. Why did we spend most of the season rehashing the Lisa Meredith stuff? That's like, was it a rant or was it a tirade? Like, who cares? How did Heather get her black eye? Who cares? Like, the whole show, the whole season felt like they missed such a big opportunity with just like the heaviness of what's happening with Jen, and like not just like how she's feeling, but like the heaviness of the whole situation, how it affects everyone. Like finally in the last episode, we saw people, Heather reacting to things, Lisa reacting to things, but like, it just felt like
well, it was the best episode of the season, in my opinion, because we finally like talked about what was actually happening instead of this. Like, I mean, I think, part of it was unavoidable from the producer's standpoint because Jen proclaimed innocence like throughout the whole series. And so something tells me that they probably left a lot of footage on the cutting room floor because they were like, this isn't going to make any sense knowing that our audience now knows that she took a guilty plea. But it was like, I mean, it was so wild because we open with this like choir performance, which speaking of housewives that sing or can't sing.
Oh, no.
I mean, this is what we were working towards, was this version of Amazing Grace that I don't know if, and I love that none of them were on key, and watching them all sort of like prepare in their bathrooms and none of them could hit a note. It was like, oh boy, this is going to fall really flat.
So good. I'm really obsessed with how far we've taken the Lisa Barlow Amazing Grace. Like all of the things Bravo have done with her since then, like the Pretend album, like Lisa just being so open to just like, yes, let's run with this. Like, I just think it's brilliant.
Yeah, like she's getting close to her EGOT because like clearly she's got the Grammy in the bag with her version of Amazing Grace. And I love that Amazing Grace is like clearly one of the songs that they don't need to buy the rights to because we keep recycling that song with the choir. It's like
so true.
It's like that's the only song that these women know.
Yeah.
It's
who sang it first? Wasn't it Portia Williams?
I think so. I think she did it at like the reunion on one of the Atlanta reunions, or maybe it was on the show and then she also sang it at the reunion. I don't know. But yes. Yeah, it was just so wild. And then to your point is like, we're talking about Heather's eye. And I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because they teased it in the trailer. Obviously, it was like this big cliffhanger in the trailer of what was to come this season. Of Heather has this massive black eye, and we don't have an answer.
Heather, I am a big fan. However, again, annoyed. The way she handled the eye thing reminded me of those people that go on Facebook that are like, guys, just please send me all your thoughts and prayers. I really need them right now. And then they wait to see if anybody like, well, what happened? What's going on? That's how I felt Heather was being.
And then they don't tell you.
Yes. And I'm like, dude, it felt very immature. It was weird. And she's not. She's awesome. So I just was like, why are you handling this in this way? Yeah,
it's like, it was a very strange thing. I almost felt as though the way in which it played out, that she was so unwilling to get to a resolution on that they should have just cut it, because it happened like, I mean, I guess you can't really like edit around the eye, but they just made it way too big of like all the overnight cam footage and all the things. It's like, we're dying for something to happen. And then even Joe, my husband, like he is not, or he claims that he doesn't watch Real Housewives, but somehow knows like everything happening, probably because he hears you and I talking about it at the dinner tables. But but he even like saw that episode and was like, okay, I have to know what happened to Heather's eye. And I was like, oh, you're going to be so disappointed because literally nothing. Like, we don't know.
Yeah.
Like, she
And
won't
also,
tell us.
You turned me on to all these Bravo accounts on Instagram that, you know, speculate or get tips. And what we're seeing people claim happened is not exciting at all.
No. Well, I mean, there's the theory of her getting Botox, which, like something happening with some bad Botox, which I could understand because she does say like that she's trying to protect herself when the producers asked, which it would come from her business, Beauty Lab, which I could understand maybe that theory. I've also heard the theory of the producer. Have you heard this one? Where apparently Heather thought that she ran into the faucet, apparently in her room. I don't know if it was like the shower, because I don't know how she runs into a faucet in the sink, or she's much shorter than I thought. But that she thought she ran into it, and even said that at one of the points in the episode. But that there's a rumor floating around that one of the producers told Heather, we have footage that shows that you got punched, but wouldn't tell her who, and basically was like feeding that to her so that she would try to play it out on the show and see what happened. But it fell super flat. And now that's why she kept like saying like, people know who did it. Like, there are people who know, like when her and Whitney sat down and Whitney's like, do you remember? And she's like, I do remember, because there are people who know what happened. And so I don't know what to believe, because to your point, like, I always have been a Heather Gay stan. I really liked her. Yes. And I can't imagine her like not just being like, hey, I got drunk and hit my eye, or hey, I got punched by this person, or, you know, I fell into a bush. Like, I feel like she would normally say, so it's like very strange that she's played this out. And if we don't get some kind of answer at the reunion, like, what was this whole season for?
Yeah, I mean, it'll feel like a waste. I mean, it already kind of does, to be honest.
Yeah.
But also just like that the way that she handled it all was very much like, I'm on a reality show, so I'm going to milk this. And it's like, I get that approach for certain things and to a certain point. And then it's like, then you say what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I felt like everything, all of the like potential storylines that we had just never went anywhere. Heather's eye, we never went anywhere with that. We never got any resolution. There was this like Shaw exposed account that Angie Harrington's husband created, and it seemed like that could have at least played out in some kind of way. It finally led up to this like apology at the book or the choir. I don't know. It was a book party, but without books, and they were the choir's first performance. It was a bit of a confusing party, but that apology was like horrible.
I know. It was like, I feel like they cut it off before he maybe said everything he needed to say, but it was something like, literally they said to the Shaws what they did. That was their apology. It was like, it was like, it was your family name. And they're like, thank you. It's like, that's what
I needed to hear. Yeah. Well, and like Chris, like he like, I don't know if he was pretending to get choked up or what happened, but he was like, oh yeah, man. And he like looked down, and then Angie was like, well, what I think he's trying to say is that he created it, but it wasn't personal. And then like Sharif's like, okay, you're forgiven. And I'm like, what this is so strange. And then it's like all of these like random things were like happening all of a sudden. The other Angie, which I actually liked that Angie. I think that she has potential. I could see her coming back. She did deliver.
Same. Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to sort of piece together next season. I do think that they need to bring and do something similar to what they're doing in Miami, where they have more housewives and they have some more side players. I think that we don't have enough storyline happening, which is part of why this feels so flat. But it's like you've got Angie giving her scissor theory that the women are scissoring, and that's how Heather got the eye, and then saying that Jen is accusing her And then she's trying to fight with Jen, but Jen's like, no, I'm talking to someone else. And the whole thing was like everyone was trying to wrap up their storylines because it was clear that the producers were like, this is the finale, get your final thoughts out. And everyone was trying to do it. Like, made no sense. And then all of a sudden, like 15 minutes into the show, it's like we're getting the ending cards. And I was like, oh my God, like this was it. This was the season. And I was like, what a flop. And then it's like, I felt like the real season began.
Same.
They arrive in New York, and Meredith and Seth and Heather like sitting around at that lunch. Like that all felt like so real. And when they go to visit Jen, like that felt real.
Yeah.
And it was just like, this is what the season should have been, instead of all of this like made up whatever was like non-storyline.
Yeah. And you know what? I think we can chalk it up to, this is all Jen's fault.
Obviously, like I do think that the producers scrambled at the end and just was like, we don't know what else to deliver for them. Now Jen's not showing up to the reunion.
Right.
And so we are never going to get like really her story. And then, and they had this like sit down with Heather and Lisa at the end too, that like ending scene. And even that felt really real. Like they were reacting to the fact that they tried at least to believe in this person as their friend, and hearing her admit to all of the wrongdoing was like, I can't imagine what that would be if I was a friend of somebody that went through something very similar.
Yeah.
But then even that, like, I felt like the credits started rolling, like as like Lisa's crying and Heather's like, I felt like they were like mid conversation and the credits started rolling, and I was like, is this about to end? Like this does not feel wrapped up at all.
I know.
So it was just like such a weird ending. It felt like a cliffhanger, which is so unusual for a Housewives season to end that way.
Yeah.
But I guess they don't really know what else to do.
They probably just didn't have a choice. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, where do you stand on that? I mean, maybe that's a obvious question, but Heather has been such a ride or die for Jen. It's like, I felt like even Meredith has like really stepped up this season to be like, I'm putting aside everything from last season because this is someone who was my friend that is going through something crazy and I'm going to support. But in New York, she's like, if this turns out to not be the case, like I can't support that. But even Heather seems to still have her like ride or die hat on for Jen after all of this has now played out. Like,
yeah,
I don't know where I would stand.
I feel like you can be someone's friend when they've done something terrible. But I think when you have a public platform and you have fans looking at what you're saying, and then you have to be really careful about how much you stick up for someone who's done something terrible. Like what she's done is terrible and
horrible. And
you can, like I've never had a friend do something like that. So I can't imagine what I would do. But if I had to just pretend for a second, I would publicly say what she did was terrible. I do not support it. I think it's awful. And I'm going to be a friend to her to help her see how she can avoid this behavior in the future or whatever. But like, I'm really disappointed in her. But I do think people like Jen who, made such a bad life choice, need people to kind of stick by them and privately support them. I don't think Heather needs to be going out there saying, we all just need to be there for her and be not. It's like, no, you need to be.
Also, this woman called her Shrek publicly and did horrible things to her. And so it's wild that she's ride or die for her, but I don't know. Well, I guess we'll have to see what happens. I mean, the reunion, it airs this week. It starts, I guess it's a 3-parter, which I don't know how we have 3 parts of footage to even digest from this last season. But so I'm not like sure that we're going to get much out of it. We'll see. And then I don't know where we go from here. I think we've got to bring in some new ladies. We've got to really like sort of retool the format and force these women. I kind of started not as a Lisa Barlow fan, and I'm ending like totally team Barlow. I want Vita Tequila. I want Fresh Wolf. for my non-existent hair. And, you know, I want all of her products. I'm like I want to go to Sundance and I want to dance with her on the dance floor. So I know. I'm all about Lisa Barlow. So I think we need to maybe build the show around her next year.
I agree. I think she delivered and she owned her. I mean, to come back after that like tantrum she threw, come back like that and apologize 1,000 times and not be too embarrassed to show face again. Like that's a real like solid housewife. She has all of the qualities needed.
Yeah. Amen. Well, I think we've talked about all the housewives that we can for this week. You know, obviously you've got to come back. You've got to come and share more of your thoughts and wisdom. I'm still like thinking about how you broke down all the fighting between the Potomac women. It was so profound. But you've got to come and share more of that in the future. But then obviously when you're ready to share more about this new project that you have been working on, I am super excited about it. And I know that your fans are going to just be elated when they hear what you've been working on. So you've got to come talk about that.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I know, so you're Cassadee Pope on most of the social platforms, and then on Twitter or on Instagram, rather, it's Cassadee Official, right?
Yes, that's right. That's where you can find me.
Awesome. So everyone go follow Cassadee for all the latest. And thank you so much for being here. Very excited that you were my first guest. Hopefully this went better than our first video show, whatever that was. And thanks all of you for tuning in. This has been a long episode, but we had a lot to cover. And until next week, it's Chris Vetrano, and you have been listening to The Gist. Bye.